Hey Martha. So after the emails that I got from you, I did talk to Jason because you recommended talking to my advisor, and we decided to do a few changes. And also, I went back also and talked to Lisa, and Dr. Ash and Maria, and just to understand what they wanted to do, what they wanted me to do about the behavioral model, and I ended up doing these changes, and I've already talked to them about it, and they're happy about where about the new direction um, of um, the dissertation. So I'm just gonna update you with what's happening. So the research questions are still the same. I want to explore the relationship between the housing characteristics, physical characteristics, and risk perception. And the second question, I want to explore the relationship between risk perception and intention. So yeah, I'm not going to be stopping at risk perception. I want to go all the way to the intention. So yeah, this is the two research questions. When it comes to the behaviors that I'm going to be looking at, first, preparing an emergency kit, preparing an evacuation plan, preparing a communication plan. And that's happening at the beginning of every hurricane season. So these are protective behaviors. Now, going back to the theory, a lot of work has been done on protective behaviors, and there's a lot of theories, frameworks, and models that suggest that intention for protective behaviors are mainly controlled by two constructs. First is the risk perception, and you can see it here. They refer to it as a threat appraisal, and that's divided into severity and likelihood. And the other construct is efficacy, and that's divided into self-efficacy and response efficacy, as you can see here. But if you can measure these two, that can explain the intention of protective behaviors. What you see here is the protective motivation theory that was developed by Dr. Rogers in 1975, and it was modified in 1983 to where he included the self-efficacy. So yeah, this protection motivation theory says if you want the intention to measure, to predict, or explain the intention of protective behaviors, you need to measure two constructs: risk perception, or the threat appraisal here, and coping appraisal, which is the efficacy component. Now, building on this theory, in 1992, the extended parallel process model was introduced. And also here, you can see that it's also built on two constructs, the perceived efficacy, which is self-efficacy and response efficacy, and the perceived threat, which is, we're talking again about the likelihood and the severity that triggers fears. And the outcome of this model is three possible outcomes. If you see here at the bottom, if the risk perception is low, they expect that no behavioral change not really perceived, and then people wouldn't really act um, in this way. And also, if you see here at the top, this is the danger control process. This is where the intention and behavioral change happens. This is what we actually want, and this is works on triggering the risk perception and efficacy at the same time. So you would have high risk perception and high efficacy, and this is where the behavioral change happens. However, if we trigger too much fear, if there's a lot of the risk perception is high, however the efficacy is low. This is where the fear control process happens, and this is something that we don't really want to happen because people start denying, resisting, and avoiding what they are supposed to be doing in these situations. Also, building on that, on the same idea, the risk perception attitude framework was introduced in 2003, and also divides the it divides um, people's behaviors, and when it comes to protective behaviors, into four different types: the avoidant, the responsive, the proactive, and the indifferent. And that's also building on two constructs only: the perceived risk and the perceived self-efficacy. The only thing that it's new in this one, compared to the previous one, is that in the previous one, if you see here, this is the extended parallel model. It says if the risk perception is low, people wouldn't really act. The risk perception attitude framework came and says, actually, if risk perception is low, however, the efficacy is high, people are still tend to take proactive, uh, be proactive and still prepare for um, like disasters, prepare um, for any crisis, and taking proactive protective actions, if that makes sense. So yeah, there's a lot of work's been done on these three: the protection motivation theory, the extended parallel model, and the risk perception attitude framework. A lot of work has been done in there, and it also supports the idea that the intention is controlled only by efficacy and risk perception. Um, so the new objective of the dissertation is to focus on these two constructs in order to explain intention. And this way, the risk perception component in here that you see, we can see how it changes intention if we can hold the efficacy constant. And I think with a big sample that we have, we might be able, I'm sure that we going to be able to hold the efficacy constant for some part of the sample that we have. So let's say if we're having over 1,000 responses for the survey, and for 400 of them considered to have low efficacy or high efficacy, that component by itself, we can consider that efficacy is constant for those 400 people and see how risk perception is actually influencing intention. Uh, in this way also, if you ask me, why are you focusing on efficacy and risk perception? I have the answer for that. There's a lot of work that's been done that supports the idea of protective actions. The intention of protective actions are controlled only by risk perception and efficacy. If you tell me like what supports this, there's a lot of studies that's been done that I already went through, and I can provide a lot of evidence that supports this idea. Why efficacy and risk in particular? Again, I have answers for all of that. So this is the idea that actually Lisa was talking about, taking um, a work that has been already done and adding to it, add your built environment component to it, instead of trying to defend the bigger model and getting stuck at each word in there, trying to convince the committee about it. Get something that's been already done, it's been already validated, and add your component to it. And I think this is the perfect fit for me. And I think, yeah, all of the committee members are happy about where this is going. Dr. Ash says in this way it's very manageable, and especially from a data analysis standpoint, and we might be able to get something out of it, instead of getting lost in the bigger model. And Dr. Maria also, she's not really into behavior a lot, but she likes the new modification because it's easier to understand, and it shows that the built environment component in it is a significant part of a smaller model, instead of if it's being a smaller component in a big model. So Risk perception in this way is going to be, I know in your email you said that risk perception might be controlled by more than the housing characteristics. And I agree, but I think it's all connected. So for me, risk perception is con controlled by two parts: the damage of the dwelling and the harm of the occupants. This is what's going to control the protective behaviors. This is what's going to make you want to have an evacuation plan or having an emergency kit or communication plan. This is what's going to control it. Now, if the first rule of preparing of hurricane preparedness is to stay at home, that means there's no way that the storm is gonna get to you before it gets to the house. So you will not be impacted if you are inside the house. You will not be impacted by the hurricane before the hurricane actually impacts the dwelling. So there's no harm for the occupants inside the dwelling if there's no damage for the dwelling itself. So even that people might perceive these two components in a different way, but I think they're very connected. I'm planning to ask about both of the components and see the relationship between them as well. But um, the it's a very logical relationship between the two. Um, this is the one that I sent you before. So now I'm going to be focusing on efficacy, on risk perception. The built environment is going to be affecting the severity of the threat. Probability of the threat is going to be based on the location. Response efficacy and self-efficacy, those are going to be um, related to like behavior based. So I'm going to be having asking question about each of the behaviors, three behaviors. Each one has its own efficacy part, but the risk perception would be applicable for all of the three um, behaviors that I'm focusing on. So the intention, we would be able still to see how risk perception is affecting intention by holding efficacy constant. And I'm not going after behavior because there's a lot of work that's been done that proves that intention leads to behavior, and also there's a lot of different factors between intention and behavior that might prevent people from adopting that behavior. So yeah, I'm going to be stopping at the intention, and in this way, I would be answering my two research questions. I know that you, like we both know that there still might be other factors that affect intention, but that would be my personal opinion about it. There's a lot of work that's been done about protective actions that proves risk perception and efficacy are the main players for the intention. That's why I'm focusing on those. Now, when it comes to the bigger model, I, Jason and I, we think it would be better to include it. I honestly I wanted to eliminate it from the dissertation and work on it on the side, on a separate study. But Jason said it might be helpful to include it in the discussion part, so that I don't lose the work that I've done on there, and I can just reflect on the limitation of the models and behaviors that I'm using already, by introducing the model later on in the discussion phase. I'm also trying to um, collaborate with Isra University in Amman, Jordan, to test the model. Like we were gonna the bigger behavioral model that I came up with, to do some modification on it and test it on vaccination decisions in Jordan, why people choose to be vaccinated or not. And hopefully, if I get to publish that before the time that I get to the discussion in this dissertation, I would be referring to a study. So yeah, it would have um, people will like trust it more because there would be like already a study has been done based on that model, and it's been initially tested at least, instead of having a brand new idea and just putting it in the dissertation without any testing that's been done on it. So yeah, this is the plan. I hope you like it. I hope you convinced about it. Um, Let me know what you think, and thank you so much for listening and for your usual support. Have a good day.